when yep.
Give me a shout when you do it.
Life would be a dream. If we cannot compare it. Oh, it's a little on the nose. Sorry.
All right.
Oh. You're on, Sai.
Oh, sorry. Hello. I'm Spurrier. I am clearly useless at this, but I'm a writer of stuff. I make things up for a living, and you and I are both on splash pages. Hello.
Is the one obvious thing.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for, and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Happy Saturday, everybody. Leo, did you turn into a cat again?
Who turned him to a goddamn cat again?
Sounds like magic. Sorcery.
Leo, are you toes beans again?
He put on Hellblazer, didn't he?
Damn it. Okay, I'm starting. Hey, everybody. Since Leo decided that he was turning into a cat again, I will be welcoming you. Happy Saturday. Welcome to a special edition of Splash Pages, where we have with us tonight a wonderful guest who is over across the pond. We're very excited to have him on. And without further ado, I'm going to pass you over and let you see we have a special guest host tonight on as well.
I'm not across the pond. Leo Pond, that is.
Uh-huh.
Hello, and thanks for having me again.
All right. Oh, we're going to go over to... You're very expressive there, Coop.
Mm-hmm. He's very expressive. Sorry, buddy. I didn't realize this is not the Peaky Blinders audition, so I'm just going to take this off. But our guest, I'm sorry, that was his joke, and it was a lot more fun.
Yeah, I was thinking that. But...
Yeah, that's my bad. That is my bad. But hey, everybody, thank you so much for waking up early on Saturday to join us. We have an absolutely fantastic guest. You've seen his work on Marvel books, DC, independent comics, credits Uncanny Spider-Man, The Dark Crystal, Uncanny X-Force, John Constantine Hellblazer, and John Constantine Dead in America. But he's done other stuff as well, and we're sure we're going to talk about it all. It's evening time for him, so he's already fitting in with our motif of drinking while on the show. Everybody, the one, the only, the dad on duty, Mr. Spurrier.
Hello, folks. Very nice to see you. Cheers from England. And to echo, I thank you for all getting up early to talk to.
Oh, no, absolutely. Thank you for giving us a reason, sir.
Yes. Like I said, I just didn't even go to bed. I just stayed up and read all night.
Smart way.
She did. She totally did.
No, right. Just to sort of lay the groundwork and sort of establish some of the stakes. I am solo parenting today for reasons that I won't bore you with. Slightly unexpectedly left in the lurch. So you've all seen that beautiful meme with the guy being interviewed and his little daughter comes in the background, all of that stuff. There is a not zero chance of something similar occurring here. I think I've got it sorted, but there's a reason I'm chugging wine like nobody's business.
I mean, listen, your characters have your characters have faced Sentinels, the Furies, whatever. I think you can handle. Actually, wait a second. Where are they? I'm so scared. Like, I feel like if I say it, suddenly they're going to pop up behind me and just, bam.
Yeah, you haven't met my kid, but there is no.
Yeah, that's fair. Wait, this is like Candyman logic. If we keep talking about it, they're going to pop up.
But
So no, focus
coat.
on the book.
My kiddo's middle name is actually Fury, Furie. So if you're,
I did not know that.
We named my boy Oscar, Ozzy, but everybody assumes because of Oscar the Grouch or Ozymandias, I call him Ozymandias. To my great shame, it's the baby in Ghostbusters 2 is where we got that.
Oh my God! Are you
after a hot
Made
dog?
Drew's
Poor
life.
man.
And for the Henson fans, the second name was going to be Toby, but we had a daughter, so that's not the problem.
Okay.
Although while we're on that, sorry, my little girl's called Sylvie, and we had never met anybody called Sylvie. And the week she was born is the week that goddamn Loki show started, wherein the Loki is called. So everybody assumed that we catched it from that.
Okay. First things first, we're already in 10 minutes in, and you're already one of my favorite guests because and Coop can back this up, and so can Gary. I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. So,
correct.
What's your Instagram tag?
Yeah, and I have for the longest time for any of my friends' kids just wanted to buy them a Winnie the Pooh onesie for their baby, but then I was like, this feels like a trap. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But
somebody did get us one of those, like back to Toby and Labyrinth. Somebody got us one of the red and white stripy onesies.
Oh, I love
it.
We tried to do a photo with him, like the bit at the end where they're sort of walking on the ceiling and the stairway, all of that. So we tried to hold them against the ceiling and take a photo. No, we are being bad parents in this moment. This level of danger is not worth this photograph. So let's never speak of that again.
Have you seen that? The talk through, I can't remember. It's one of those trendy sites. I'm not sure if it's still trendy or not, but they had a couple of like millennials watch Labyrinth for the first time, and they were like documenting it as they went through it. It had like each note was numbered, and it's like note number 78 or something like that is, man, he just yeeted the fuck out of that baby. It's just like,
so while we're on the subject, that baby was, so if I said Brian Froud, who I'm talking about, the concept artist who designed Dark Crystal and Numbercruncher. So the baby was Toby Froud. It's his real life son. Toby Froud then grows up to become a puppet maker and special effects wizard in his own right, who was in charge of making the new Dark Crystal TV show. And because I was writing at that time Dark Crystal comics, I got invited to the studio to do a tour while they're shooting that TV show. And I mean, number one, really fucking weird experience, because I spent a lot of time working as an art director in TV, and some of the cardinal rules, you watch what you say, you have to be careful, the bell rings, everybody shuts the fuck up. You go into a soundstage, not even a soundstage, it's just a big drafty warehouse in the middle of Slough. You go into a stage where they're shooting, where all the audio is going to be dubbed in post-production. You've got one guy in one corner of the studio with an angle grinder building a new set while they're shooting this extraordinary shot next door. It's just a cacophony all around you, and yet stuff is happening. Really, really weird experience. The other thing was I came very close to seriously fucking up my career because I arrived late and had to scribble my NDA very quickly, and then did not realize that when they brought us through to the end, a bunch of us on this tour, we were told to pause to take photos for socials in front of the crystal, the actual crystal is there.
Wow.
Oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm on the train on the way home, sticking that on Twitter. Hadn't realized that the NDA specified wait 3 weeks before putting it on social. So I got this really grumpy message from the Henson people. Retract, spent a ton of money sending them like a tea chest in the middle of LA just to make them like me again. So yeah, read your NDAs, kids. But anyway, the point was, Toby was the guy who showed us around. And while we're there, his dad, Brian Froud, is right there drawing stuff in the background. So we went and said, met Brian Froud. Amazing day.
Amazing.
So you wouldn't know this, but the reason I asked them to be on is because I am one of the biggest Dark Crystal fans and Labyrinth fans that you could possibly meet. I recently went to the exhibit that they had for Jim Henson, where they had the outfits from Labyrinth and the original Dark Crystal Jen and Aughra. That's why when you held up your Aughra, I'm like, I met her. So I could not be a bigger fan. Everything you said, I'm absolutely geeked about.
It was a really great day, and I'm still like, my little boy's 6, and I think that's probably how old I was when I watched Labyrinth. I remember it gave me nightmares, but I have spent the rest of my life loving that movie. So I don't know. I'm not sure when he's ready.
I totally understand, and I agree with you, because for me, sometimes fantasy is really hard to get into. I think I just spent so much time as a kid with science fiction and stuff. So magic, I'm like, okay, draw me in, sell me the pitch.
Well,
but
what is magic but science that we don't understand yet?
Thank you, Thor.
Second law.
Yeah, but Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, I was like, okay, but Labyrinth, I also agree. I saw it when I was young, and I don't know why, but the characters, Justin, you probably would know the name of these a little better than me, but the characters who pile things on their back as they're, I forgot. Yeah. I don't know why, but that creeped me out as a kid, and I was terrified. I think that's kind of why I started cleaning. I didn't want to end up like that, so I was like, you know what I mean? I was like, oh no.
Well, it's an exercise in psychology, just like if you go back to the original Wizard of Oz idea, right, for the film, where it's is this happening in your head? Is it metaphysical? Are these manifestations of your own trauma? That sort of thing. That's Labyrinth. And that's what Terry Jones and Jim Henson were going for. Very prevalent in Size book.
If you read the original treatment for Labyrinth, it's much more obvious that Sarah is having some sort of hallucinogenic experience which mirrors things that have been going on in the real world. So, for instance, it's only glimpsed in the cut that made it to the screen, but it becomes quite clear when you read the treatment, or if you watch the existing movie very, very closely, that her real mum, has run away with a charismatic actor who is David Bowie. And that's all there in the treatment. And she's having this sort of strange, metaphorical, metaphysical adventure where she's trying to deal with the fact that her mother's left, and this guy, this person she doesn't quite understand, who is beautiful and seductive and charismatic, but ultimately deadly, is responsible for it all, and it's her exerting her power over this force that has removed her mother from her life. So it's still in there, but clearly they've recut it, they've reconstituted it, so it's a lot more simple and elegant. But I mean, I kind of love that layer is under the surface if you go looking for it. And that her bedroom at the end, all the toys. There's a little labyrinth game. You're given the clues to understand that this is really her imagination going into overdrive rather than a real event that's happening, if you choose to believe that.
I just think it just reinforced just what I've always known, that as an adult, I feel like few things are more joyous than you just dancing with Muppets. So,
You're right.
like, I'm still waiting for that moment where I'm just there, and I like Coop. I grew up, with the Muppets and all the Jim Henson-y things. I mean, me and my family, we watch Muppet Christmas Carol every year. That's a
There you go.
you know
Still
to
the
the
best adaptation of that book, in my view.
100%. I some people would try to argue, and I'm like, I hear you, but you're still wrong.
I
Objective.
keep
You
getting
know,
closer to making that my favorite movie. With Michael Caine as serious as a heart attack. Bah, bah, bah.
I,
Yeah.
I think Coop, my favorite thing is that someone's like, "What's your favorite character in that movie?" Then I was like, "It's the hecklers, Jacob and Robert." Like,
Marley and Marley. Yeah.
yeah, Marley and Marley. Because what was it? I think I've told you, Coop, that my favorite thing to do is do both of them when they're in the past. When they're doing the speech and they keep interrupting.
You
So
dancing fool. Yeah.
yeah, this is the part of the night where we take a nap. Oh, and then that was the speech. It was dumb. It was short. It was pointless. We loved it. It's just the best. That's just generally no, but that's fantastic. And I will say I got the opportunity, thanks to the Alamo Draft House in my area, to see the Labyrinth when they were doing a showing, and I got to see it on the big screen. And oh man, it's what, like, there are movies that you have to see on the big screen to really get that impression, and that's one of them. I mean, just the scope and everything. Although, Coop, you would appreciate this. I remember watching it, and I think this is around the time Pacific Rim was coming out. So I think one of them was in a metal suit. I was like, is he a Jaeger pilot?
Of course. Yeah.
And I was like, Guillermo, what? Did we get this idea from the Labyrinth? Did you give Jim Henson
yeah, absolutely.
royalties?
So you guys, I don't know if you have read Labyrinth Coronation, because I went through this again. I have all the comics, and I had gone back again. Super excited to hear that Cy was going to be on. This is a great book, and this is something, if the listeners and watchers and all that, if you get a chance to check it out, if you love Labyrinth, it is insane, gonzo, heartfelt, beautiful at times, incredibly thought-provoking and emotional. It's gripping. I loved it. And I mean, with characters like Blundergast the Invincible, good day. It's like you're gonna just love it. Like, if there's anything that you loved about the first movie, check this book out. So.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a real, like, they gave me the opportunity, and I had to say yes, but I was very nervous because the movie means a lot to me. As I said, I watched it when I was very young, and I think it had quite a major impact. It probably steered me towards a lot of the things that I became quite into later in life. So a little nerve-wracking, but also apropos what we've just been talking about. If you accept that this is a movie which succeeds because the truth or not truth of Sarah's journey is ambiguous. If we start from the position of the Labyrinth is a real place, it's a real alternate universe, and Sarah has gone through some sort of portal to the world, then everything starts to get a bit bad, frankly. All the metaphors fall apart. It's no longer about her coming to terms with something. It's no longer about a personal internal journey for her. It's just a slightly lazy portal fantasy that drops you into this other world. So to be asked to write a prequel, you have to sort of thread that needle a little bit. You've got to find a way to do it so that it treats this world as if it matters without answering too many questions about its truth or lack of truth. So it was tricky. So we decided to sort of talk about the Goblin King's origins, to again make it about somebody who might be having a mental breakdown, to sort of walk between those raindrops a little bit. I was really proud of it. I had to step off halfway through because life became insane. I was offered a job in TV that I could not say no to, and my slate was just exploding, and I was on the verge of a breakdown. So they were able to use my plots, which are quite tight anyway, just to kind of bridge the gap while I stepped off. But I came back for the ending. Yeah, I have very fond memories of that. I haven't read it fully since it was published. I should probably go back and have a look. I tend to do that. I tend not to read my own work. I find it very hard and very uncomfortable. I'm not very proud of anything I've ever written. And it always surprises me when people say they've enjoyed things. So thank you, thank you for that.
Oh yeah.
I get that, maybe the like I could see that sometimes with a performance or something like that, but oh my God, your Dark Crystal, like how could you not be proud of that? Like what? You invented another type of Gelfling? I know this is deep geek talk, guys. I promise I will move on to his awesome Nightcrawler as Spider-Man. Like we'll get there. But I mean, Dark Crystal Labyrinth, come on, it's awesome.
I mean, same as before, like utterly nerve-wracking to get into that. But it's a funny one as well because Dark Crystal it's almost the opposite of Labyrinth. You know that this is a real world. We're not being told that it's any sort of ambiguous fever dream. And yet, and this is a broader pub conversation probably, which you guys will hopefully relate to. We're all geeks here. There is this tendency in fandoms, any fandom which truly loves something, loves a franchise, loves an IP, desperately wants detail. We want maps. We want to know what everything's called. We want to know how this ecosystem works. We want to know family trees. We want to know that thing eats that thing, and she's fucking him, and that's his mother, and that's her cousin's boyfriend's roommate. We want to draw this massive mind map to understand all of these worlds. The problem is, for creative intents, that's death, that's moribund, that's stagnation. You have to leave everything open to interpretation. And so when you're asked to come along and write something in the Dark Crystal world, the temptation is to name things, to use extremely elaborate language, to be specific about stuff. And I really resisted that because I think it's to every fantasy's detriment. Fucking Tolkien, he can do it. He can write a map, but suddenly every motherfucker wants a map in the beginning of their book. I think it's a real problem. My point is, when you approach something you love, you treat it with care and you don't over fuss. You don't become needlessly fiddly about detail, because all you're doing is preventing this world from having room to breathe. There's probably a more profound thought in there somewhere, but that was sort of the approach I took.
Well, it's evident there, and I mean, you took characters that were iconic from the movie, and you gave them new life, new things, new motivations, and yet you kept it to the core. Like Jen and Kira are there, and they're about love, they're about wisdom, and kind of protecting the world, and they understand when it's their time to step aside, which I thought was just such a brilliant move from those two characters to have that level of clarity. This is not our time. We need to step aside because there's this that's happening. And again, for anyone who hasn't read this, if you've seen the Dark Crystal, you know who the Skeksis are, you know who the Mystics are and all that. It's all there. If you like Chamberlain, oh boy, he's there. He's doing some shit. So it's like, it's great. Like Fezgig is there. Everybody's there. It's one of those things. It's a brilliant tale of star-crossed lovers, very reminiscent of like a Romeo and Juliet feel to it, but it stays so true to like the mythos without getting deep into the weeds. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And true story, my extremely furry Norwegian cat is called Fizgig. So
nice.
This man is just living his best life with references. I'm just telling you. Did you just wake up and you just I was like, you like that song? There's always something there to remind me. You're like, yep, all the things I love are also references to other things I love. So it's love everywhere.
Because where I live, I could turn the camera around and show you, but I won't because it's a grim and horrible day. But I live on the seaside in a little town outside London, and it's like geek free. There is no real geek culture here, and that's fine because I don't necessarily have to inhabit the geek. But as you have identified, I sort of secrete it around myself, hidden in plain sight. It's quite nice to sort of surround yourself by little reminders of things that you've had some influence on.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And then, so Coop, we'll pivot to Nightcrawler and other things because I know we have a lot to talk about, and we only have him for an hour and some change.
Yeah.
So, like I was saying to you before the show, and I don't mind repeating it, I have not really kept up with X-Men, so Krakoa and a lot of that I didn't read. So coming in, I just saw the news, and we covered it on the show, that, you know, there was going to be an Uncanny Spider-Man, and Nightcrawler was going to be filling in for Peter Parker. And I was like, wow, this is so fucking cool. Because like it was one of those like, wow, this actually makes sense. And just reading it, you know, yeah, there was stuff with Orcus and you know, things that had happened to Courage the Hellfire Gala and other things. But this story was just so, like, it was so easy to follow, and you just hit the beats really well. And it was just so funny, because I never thought I'd see it where Nightcrawler was Spider-Man, but I'm like, why does this work so well? Like, Coop, what do you got on that?
The man understands Kurt Wagner. He gets him. You know, that's why whenever you have an interaction with the character, he rings true. You know, he's fun, he's whimsical, at times he's pensive. You know, he's deliberate in his actions on what he does. And this is a really great characterization of a character that's been around since what, 1973?
Yeah,
Like a new like, when was the last time we had something really new about Nightcrawler? You know?
totally. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, so Sai, was that daunting? Kind of just pushing that character to, you know, not exactly be a replacement, but be kind of a I don't know, I'm sure, like, because he's not a replacement, he's not a fill-in, he's just another Spider.
Yeah. Yeah, daunting, I suppose. I mean, you sort of have to interrogate slightly what had gone before, in the knowledge that one of the reasons for doing this book was entirely so that you didn't have to interrogate what went before. As you say, you know, it was important that one could pick this up without having had a deep immersion in the whole Krakoa era, and that in itself was part of the brief. For like, there's still some sort of lingering emotional trauma, I think, in those of us who worked in that phase of the X-Men, about the way that it was curtailed, quite bluntly. But I recognize the thinking behind it. The thinking, which makes some sense, is if you're 4 years into this incredible project, which completely redresses the core metaphors of what the X-Men are all about, changes the status quo, takes you a million miles away from the mansion and the school and the Blackbird and all the things that people think of when you know, the sort of mass culture thinks of the X-Men. 4 years into a project that is a billion miles away from all of that stuff, that's when the brand people and the money people start getting a little bit nervous, because they're like, how can anybody jump aboard this without having had 4 years of close reading?
Put a number 1 on it. Oh.
Well, right. And also, yes, there are a million ways that you can answer that question. If I were the Hickmans and the Jerrys and the Kierans up there doing the big books, we had all those ideas. There are ways that you could have propagated this incredible project that made it user-friendly to new readers. In the event they didn't get the chance, and that's okay. I don't think any of them are butthurt about that. I certainly wasn't, because I told the stories I meant to tell. Anyway, I was brought in near the beginning with a very strange brief, which is, can you tell a story about Nightcrawler creating a mutant religion? Now that's fun, and a book that's very me, but also exceptionally challenging. You have this character who is a professed Roman Catholic. Automatically, I had to do an awful lot of philosophical gymnastics to find a way that the, in inverted commas, religion he was creating wasn't really a religion at all. It was more of a Tao, a philosophy, a way of being. That's how we got Way of X. We went from there to Legion of X, which was a sort of attempt to show how you could create an ethically righteous peacekeeping operation in an anarchic, exceptionally horny society on multiple psychedelic levels, without it just being a bunch of fucking cops arresting people and throwing them in prison. So these were all quite heady, and I love them and I'm proud of them, but I recognize they are not big dumb spandex fun. You know, most people, when they want to sit down and read a superhero comic, they want it to be fun, they want it to be punchy, they want it to take 5 minutes to read, and then they want to forget about it.
Oh, I don't
That's
know
never
about
what I'm going
that.
to manage to do. That's not what I can do. But it was proposed that maybe the next phase in Nightcrawler's journey should be a little closer to that, so that people could enjoy it, so that people could recognize immediately the sort of action thriller vibes. Me being me, I then couldn't do it straight. It
Right.
occurred to me that one thing that I've never seen done before is that as a mechanism for displacing trauma. Like it
Right.
occurred to me that I could tell a story in which this main character appeared to be doing right down the pipe superhero junk, swinging around in Manhattan, stopping muggers, all of those things that we sort of love to read. But there's a secondary layer. You slowly realize that the only reason he's doing it is because it's fun. And it's easier to do that shit than it is to deal with the big heavy trauma that he's going through. And so that's the kind of dichotomy that I was trying to play with. And I think it works. I think it allows you to skate across the surface of his backstory without having to have absorbed yourself entirely in the Krakoa era. I love the romance. I love the silver sable of it all. Like your list of adjectives when describing Nightcrawler were all completely apposite. The one that I missed was horny. He's a horny motherfucker, and I really wanted to have a little bit of Kurt being horny in a book because it's fun and it's beautiful. So yeah, I'm very proud of it. But you know, it went away way too soon. I think if it had been begun much earlier in the Krakoa project, it would have run and run. As it was, we got 6 issues or 5 issues, I forget. 5, because we knew at that point Krakoa was winding up anyway. So yeah, that's how the cookie crumbles.
Now you're in the heyday of cosplayers showing up as Spidey Kurt. I don't know, Spider Crawler.
I've seen 2 of them, fewer than I would hope, but I haven't been to many cons because aforementioned children.
Right. But well, I like I said, I mean, I was just rereading it prior to this interview, and I was just like, man, this was just so much fun. Especially like I loved him taking pointers from Peter, you know, about jokes. I think when they were taking down the Sentinel, and what was it? Kurt was coming in, and Peter's being mistaken as a mutant. He's like, "Hey, creepy crawler, thanks for coming in. Mondays." I'm like, "Oh my god." And they just take it down. He's like, "What did you think? Was the joke good?" I was thinking, and I'm just like, this would 100% be Kurt getting one-liners about getting tips on one-liners. Like, was this in brand with the thing that you do? And then arguing about pizza and mob violence. I was like, well, look, my life. I was like, mob violence, bad. Pizza, good. I was like, thank you.
Which is what you kind of pointed out, Sai, is that the reason I like this book is it's very much a Ninja Turtles book. I just realized that in speaking to you.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Holy crap. It totally is.
Yeah,
Wow.
it didn't occur to me until you said what you said. And I'm like, yep, there's even the pizza. So
yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally.
That's an interesting point.
There was a lot of arguments about, what was it, that one joke? I was like, I'm sure that olive is a cockroach. Or like, yeah, maybe no anchovies. He's not a mutant, but second best slice. I'm like, oh my god. But and even at the end, you able to do the, what was it? With great kinship come great responsibility, something like that at the end.
If they let you do a Spire book, you kind of have to have your take on that famous.
Yeah, oh totally. And then but it was just like I said, when the 5th issue, I was like, oh man, because I would have kept reading, and I agree with you. Like I would have kept reading because I was like, this is fun, and I think sometimes some Marvel books are just so serious. I mean, don't get me wrong, like it's Marvel, you know, they're known for theirs, but sometimes things just get so dark, and you're just like, can we just have fun? Is that hard? Can we just do the thing instead of? I was like, no, we must be focused on this. I'm like, oh my god. Focus somewhere else.
It's an interesting point. I mean, without dwelling too long, one of the challenges, I have always felt in approaching Big 2 work is that quite early on I was recognized as essentially the sort of the cerebral weirdo guy who writes 1990s Vertigo, and every opportunity I get in a superhero comic ends up looking like 1990s Vertigo. Now, what's actually happening there is those are the briefs I'm given because that's what they think I do. So every now and then I get the chance to do something that's just big dumb fun. And yes, I will always introduce all sorts of wanky subtexts because I'm me, but it's nice to just occasionally spend 5 issues doing something that's a little bit less crazy, a little bit less thoughtful. I want more of that.
We'll stick you and Dan Chichester together, and we'll get the most in-depth, well-researched, just total deep dive into insanity and hell. It'll be beautiful.
It would be, oh my God, I would sit at that table and just listen. I wouldn't say a word. I would just be like, go. So kind of transitioning, speaking of that, I just need to say your Hellblazer set John Constantine is fantastic. And because I know, especially when Dead in America was being released, every issue, me and Carrie would just spend the next day because we have our little chats. And it was just like, did you read? It's like, oh my God, that was so like, I personally speaking, just rereading the first 6 issues, I loved the way you tied into some of the events from the original Sandman. Like just the first issue alone, you have John talking to the new dream, but it's not the same dream because you're still keeping in line with that story. So it's Daniel, and I'm just like, dude, like just the referencing the bag of sand, helping him, all that stuff. And I think for me, the line that got me was, what was it? You're scarier than the original guy. He was just a miserable old god. You smiled. And I'm like, God damn.
It's I mean, fuck. Let's address the elephant in the corner while we're here. When we, so again, a little bit of backstory. Aaron and I did a Hellblazer series a few years ago. It was exceptionally well received. We got to, I forget, 13 issues, something like that. It was one long arc, but sort of chopped into self-contained stories, which I tend to think are the best Hellblazer stories, ones that have a beginning and an ending. That was made possible because at the time, Black Label was doing all these books subtitled Sandman Universe. I had done a Dreaming book set in that curve, and it sort of grew out of the same thing. We found a way to bring back John Constantine, who had previously apparently been dead, using some guff that was in one of Gaiman's old books. And it sort of, to go back to some of the things I was talking about earlier on, it behoves the writer to utilize but avoid detail where possible. You want to rely upon continuity, you want to include it, you want to make sure that it's there as an Easter egg for people who are really, really soaked into the wisdom and the continuity, but you don't want to make it a hurdle for people who don't know this stuff. So every step of the way, you're trying very hard to make it accessible. That whole first arc, therefore, was quite distinct. It revolved around what turned out to be a tulpa, a sort of thought form creation of Constantine's worst self. And we knew as we approached the end of that arc that the next arc was going to take John to America. And we had lots of ideas about that, but that's when the axe fell. And we thought, that's it. We've had our shot. We did our best. People seem to love it, but evidently the money was not there. Move on. And then a few years passed. Our amazing editor, Chris, had been unknown to us, agitating away in the background, hoping that we could eventually get this thing up and running. And when we got the opportunity, we had to think long and hard about how do you launch this in such a way that it feels fresh, feels new. You don't have to have read the first arc. And frankly, in a sort of slightly mercenary marketing way, ties into just enough recognizable shit that more people are going to read it. Otherwise, the same thing's going to happen. We're going to get axed before we get started. And the answer was Sandman. I've made a bit of a career out of coming into like event comics and pointing out the flaws, pointing out the plot holes, and then making that my story. And so it was quite easy to go right back to those early Sandman issues and say, well, there's something that doesn't add up here because, excuse me, nerding out, deep cuts here. Constantine had been hiding Dream's bag of sand, but claimed never to have opened it. But when Dream finds the bag of sand, Constantine's girlfriend has managed to open the bag and is snorting it as if it's an addictive substance. That doesn't make sense. The only way that makes sense is if John lied. John absolutely was able to open the bag of sand, and his girlfriend has borrowed his notes in order to do so. So little things like that, which allow you to get into a story. It allows you to reference Dream. It allows you to reference the events of Sandman. More importantly to me, it allows me to reference stuff that happened in Saga of the Swamp Thing. And I kind of created this whole behind the scenes Rosencrantz and Guildenstern-y vibe where you're sort of seeing what happened behind the scenes of all these big Vertigo stories. And that's a lot of fun. And hopefully it's not so vital that you recognize those stories that the Hellblazer arc makes no sense. But the elephant in the corner, 2/3 of the way through this story, the Gaiman news broke. That's still rumbling as we sit here talking. It is no longer okay that my work, my ideas are in any way predicated upon that man's work. That makes me very uncomfortable. That makes me very sad because I think I can say with my hand on my heart that all the work in those books came from me. It's all original work that is built upon the shifting sands of all these other amazing writers' work, Neil and Alan and so on. I don't think anybody could doubt that Neil's a really good writer. Turns out he's a bit of a cunt as well. So that's a shame.
Yeah. But like I said, I mean, you and Aaron just worked so well together, just tying in the themes. I mean, oh my gosh, it was just fantastic. Just every issue. Like I had no idea where you guys were going to go with it, but just not just that, but like especially when you were in Hollywood, like just the thought. First thing I just need to say, the book opens with the corpse tumbling down Hollywood. I think there was like witnessing. It was like Carrie. It was like a porn shoot, right? Something like that. And he isn't even like just laughing at it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how the book's starting. This is gonna be amazing. And then just the like the end when you're talking about Hollywood and the ideas and how they are gestated and then kind of twisted and turned. Like it was just, I was like, wow, like I have to be honest, I kind of thought like it was kind of like those deep thoughts, like, you know, early Neil, a lot of Alan Moore kind of thing. Like, because again, I feel like some people think, you know, comics are fun, and they are, don't get me wrong. But I think sometimes I was like, yeah, no, but they can be serious and they can make you think, and it's just got to clever. It's not, but like just the way you and Aaron worked together, it was just fantastic. So just need.
And I think you're right. I mean, that's the sort of the mother load for me is make something that feels fun, entertaining, thrilling, but there's something slippery underneath the surface that speaks to what we're all feeling. It's a very scary world at the moment. It's you know, depressing or thrilling depending upon which side of the emotional spectrum you're on. But right now I'm feeling extremely doomy and very depressed about the state of the world, and some of that went into Hellblazer. Whether or not you share my my political leanings, I think you can't deny that stories are used in a way that is both manipulative and frequently very aspirational. It can be a great power. It can be a great responsibility to be telling stories to people. I've met enough people at conventions who have been changed, for better or worse, by my peculiar little doodlings, that I recognize how powerful this is. But if you're then scaling that up to the sort of messaging that comes out of mass media, Hollywood in particular, this is absolutely the means to change the world. And I don't know that we're using it right. I think that we're probably missing opportunities to make the world a better place. in our haste to make entertaining movies.
What a great lens to shine that through with Constantine, because I mean, you talk about the guy that flipped off the devil, you know, and he knows where he's going, and he can't slow down, you know. It's like locomotive breath, you know. It's just it's interesting. I've not read this one, but I'm familiar with the character. Uh, I did see the animated version, the City of Demons. Was this at all? Was this post that? I know J.M. DeMatteis did that one.
I'm afraid I haven't
It's kind
seen
of a
it.
similar concept, it seems. So maybe they poached from you a bit. I don't know. So
I expect it was before us. Ours is quite recent, but I mean, there's if it's any of the sort of the Constantine that inhabits the same universe as your Batmans and your Supermans, that's a fun character, but that is not the character I was writing.
okay, yeah, that is very much the character.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Actually, Coop, I have to ask. Okay, because I've been wondering this for a while and whatnot. Is it like a tomato thing, Constantine? Does it? I mean, it's this, right?
There is
Again.
there is a right answer. There is a right answer. So what's funny about this? So it's Constantine, and the way I remember that is it rhymes with my line because he's a motherfucker. So Constantine rhymes with my line. He originally from Liverpool. So there's a river called the River Tyne, which is not a million miles away from there. But the funny thing is, if he were utilizing a Liverpudlian accent, he probably would be Constantine. And I take this, I mean, by the way, this is canonical. Alan has said his name is Constantine. I take that as a little bit of very sly characterization because he's the kind of guy who will always be a little bit other. He spent most of his life in London. He's got the ghost of a Liverpudlian accent, but he's using his surname as if it's a London pronunciation. This comes from a guy who says Minotaur. Minotaur? I would have said Minotaur.
I say mine.
I'm responding to a comment. I don't know what that was.
I don't know. Thanks, Chud, babies.
Again, there's the correct answer. The correct answer is Minotaur because he's named for King Minos. Minotaur just means the bull of Minos.
Yes. Okay. I
love when he fights with Etrigan about his name too. Quit it, Constantine.
I was so excited to write Etrigan because I've always loved that character, and then two issues of that motherfucking iambic pentameter. I was ready to blow my brains out. I will never write that character again.
I feel like a lot of people made it look so easy. Like I remember, like telling Garth Ennis when I met him once or twice. I was like, I don't know how you guys did it. You and your frequent collaborator John McCree, who we had on early in March. I was like, I don't know how you guys do it because you guys make the rhymes look so easy, and I'm like, I know it's not. Like I know it's not. You know?
It's hard. Yeah.
So
the scansion is really tough. Actually, this is a shameful thing to admit. Halfway through the first issue, when I was just tearing my hair out, it was taking so long. I tried to stick it into ChatGPT. I was like, well, right, everybody's going on about this fucking AI. Here's what I need Etrigan to say. Here you are, ChatGPT. Take this and turn it into iambic pentameter rhyming couplets. And it was piss. It was the worst thing I've ever seen.
Oh my
God. Back to the drawing board.
This is interesting to me, guys, because I was just wondering about another character that is a combination of two characters that Sai has already written. Are you familiar with Speed Demon, who's an amalgam character of the Demon, Etrigan, technically Ghost Rider, but also the Flash?
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. I know we're big fans of all those characters. I was just wondering if you had heard of him.
No, I'm afraid not. My knowledge of all things Big Two is sadly lacking. Every time I get the opportunity to do one of those, I sort of suspect they come to me because I tend to approach things with a clean bill, with a fresh pair of eyes, rather than being extremely soaked in all the continuity. I sometimes, this will sound really arrogant of me, and it's not always true. This is a dreadful generalization. You can tell, I think, when a writer approaches a character first and foremost as a fan, rather than as a writer. I think, it goes back to some of what we were talking about before, this need to fill in the blanks, to fiddle with detail. It ends up being a lot more about the what than it is about the why. I want to write and read stories about why rather than what. And I think most, if you've grown up and you're absolutely obsessed about, I don't know, Green Lantern, and then you get the chance to write Green Lantern, it's like getting to play in somebody else's model. You get to inspect every window, you get to add your own little trees, you get to fiddle about here, repaint this bit, and it's all on a quite granular level. Whereas I would prefer to be like, why is there a model here? Can we take this model away and put in a new model? Can we turn this model upside down? That's a really terrible metaphor for the approach, but I think it's
really appropriate for your X-Men work, though. Yeah.
Yeah, you just made Mystique a god, basically.
I
was
love
like,
X-Men Legacy, but yeah.
It's. I mean, I still have to be super careful about how I talk about this, because it's it's something that came about. I mean, first and foremost, it was something Claremont intended to do way back when. To be clear, we're talking about the fact that Mystique and Destiny turn out to be essentially father and mother of Nightcrawler.
Yes.
Sort of the biological ramifications of somebody who can not only change their shape but also adjust their genetics, so that chromosomal parentage, gamete parentage, no longer has any binary meaning. And I like the politics of that, but I recognize that a lot of people don't. But it was something Claremont intended to do. He was going to reveal that Mystique was basically, if we use that crude language of binaries, Mystique was basically Kurt's father. As a group, the X-writers had spent a lot of time kind of nibbling at the possibility of that coming up. We thought that it would probably happen on Kieran's watch, because Kieran was doing most of the Quiet Council stuff. In the event, the timing was never right. I'm not quite sure that the courage was there at times amongst the powers that be. And then along came Uncanny Spider-Man, and I'd already started writing it when it occurred to me, and then as a consequence of that, chatting to Kieran and other members of the group, that maybe this was the time and the place. And it just sort of bubbled up from there. And of course, another deep cut. The problem you have to contend with is that this story has already been told in a completely different way. There was the Draco arc, which established quite clearly that Mystique was not Nightcrawler's father. Destiny was not present. So we had to find a way to retell the story in such a way that it respected and paid some service to the existing canon, and then completely changed it without that being just a sort of dismissive table flip. There are plenty of people who think I'm evil for having done so, and will tell you that it's clumsy, unnecessary, disrespectful to Rogue. There's a whole host of people who really aren't happy with that. And hey, I'm not going to tell them they're wrong. Everybody's right to feel the way they feel. I respectfully disagree. I think that my thinking was quite careful. I shared my thinking with an awful lot of my fellow X-writers. We got sensitivity readers in. We were extremely careful about it, and I think it holds up. And if I'm honest, the number of people who have contacted me in tears to say this is beautiful and it's changed my life, thank God this has finally happened, thank you for finally doing this, probably makes the opprobrium, can't say that word, the grumpiness from all the people who didn't enjoy it worthwhile. I think you sort of have to eventually balance those scales and work out what's worth it and what's not. And I think on the whole, the positive reaction was very much worth it.
Well, either way, it's canon. So I mean, it's there. It's out there,
yeah.
And that's what it is. And I talked to Chris Claremont one time at length, and he told me the whole plan for Wolverine and Jean Grey, and then Kitty Pryde turns off the lights in the universe, and I'm like, "You're crazy, man." You know, it's like I'm like, I get it, and I'm like, "You're the Godfather, so what you say goes." But I mean, I didn't have to like it. I would have much rathered him end up with Storm, but that's the architect. What are you going to say? You know, that's
There's
really
this
cool.
wonderful term we still use when scripting now. If you're writing like an ongoing story, there's a term called Claremonting, which is where you throw in a detail which you don't exactly know how it's going to pay off, but you recognize that it'll probably be useful at some point in the future. So, like the example is Storm is flying down a hallway and she pauses and goes, "Oh, there's a door there. I didn't know what that door's for." And so she keeps flying. But like 6 issues later, when Claremont needs a way for the story to progress, somebody goes through that door and it opens the mystery. So Claremonting, technical term.
Have you ever done the other trope is making up musical groups and then referencing them several times in your run?
Oh my god!
That's right. Yeah, yeah. There was one I think in Uncanny Spider-Man. I can't remember now. Like the Angry Frogs or something. There's some
Yeah, that takeoff of the cats. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. So there was one that he had from way back, which was like the angry cats or something, and it kept showing up in Claremont's work. So, you know,
Great.
yeah, Mystique, such an interesting character to be able to write, and Destiny, who never gets enough credit. But I mean, I'd have to say Nightcrawler seems to me to be a lot of people's favorite character. So this is definitely having a big impact on the X universe.
I hope so. To my great shame, I have not read any of the new stuff. I know Gail is extraordinary, and I love her work, but I haven't had the heart to go and see what direction it's gone in, because you put so much energy and emotion into your story, and you recognize at the bottom of your heart that when your story is done, there will inevitably be a reboot, and probably a lot of what you've written will be disregarded. That's fine. That's part and parcel.
That's what I like about it. I don't love every era of X-Men. There's 2 or 3 that I could do without, you know. But that's fine. I love the character journey, and I'm gonna follow my favorite character, which would be Rogue or Logan or Cypher or something like that. I'm like, oh, what are they up to now? You can tune out and come back in, and that's why I love when these guys talk a lot about like the Ultimate Run and things like that. I'm like, oh wow, I never thought of that take on the character. I should check that out. Or even going back to we're talking about like the Flash or Constantine. I'd love the character. I haven't read that In America run. I need to do so.
You do.
Oh, you do.
Yeah.
Reader sophistication is quite like we tend to think wrongly, I believe, that readers can't handle cognitive dissonance. So the obvious example: Wolverine's in 6 teams at once. Batman's in 10 different books. How can this character possibly coexist in this world where his time is stretched so thin? He's doing 6 different things. He's had his leg chopped off over there. He's having sex with Catwoman over there. He's in space over there. This is silly.
Logan. No, it's good.
The thing is, readers are very sophisticated. They're able to switch off the little bit of their brain that goes, "This is silly," and just enjoy the fucking story. And I think we don't give readers enough credit. Like you said, 2 versions of Constantine can coexist. They can both be really good characters without being the same thing at all. There's no problem with that, in my view.
I just think about it as I buy a stack of comic books. I've got 15 comic books that I can read on my night after work. I've just had a hard 8-hour day. I don't want to think about continuity and all that. I want to escape into this story about Batman fighting a live gargoyle, and then I want to move on to the next book that I've got that's either DC or Image or IDW or Boom Studios, anything else like that, and I want to move on. I want to enjoy it, but I don't want to overthink it because it's an escape. And I think that's maybe a piece of it that's missing too. It's like, oh, we've got to worry about continuity. No. I need to escape for 15 minutes reading a book.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm so with you. I think that it's possible to enjoy a story, discrete unit of story. That's how we have evolved to think. We can't think in any way except in beginnings, middle, and end. I can't talk. I'm sorry. I should stop drinking this wine. We can't think in any way except stories, and yet we become so obsessed by the leakage, the way that these things are conflicting with each other in parallels. It's just not necessary. We can just tell great stories that can exist in some vague time framework, that don't have to be constantly interrogated in relation to each other. They can just be great stories, and that's enough, I think.
That's something I noticed.
They help me find these stories.
Something I noticed in everything that we read, and we also read Six Gun Gorilla, which is fabulous, by the way. You are an amazing storyteller who also explains the importance of telling stories. Like, a lot of your stories reflect how a story affects reality. Like, and we talked about it briefly before, but, you know, and just like, you know, if somebody believes in it, it affects how everything goes for them. And it kind of reminds me of Terry Pratchett's whole thing with like the narrativium, like a story lives, it has its own life, it takes off and it goes places. And they did something similar just a while back with the Immortal Thor. Al Ewing did, you know, they had like Rox and Korg try to take over and like change everybody's belief in Thor so that he would, when he came to her, he would be like this big dumb guy and everybody just, you know, couldn't believe in him. But the powers that stories have, that's something you nail in everything that I've read of yours. It's just, you're on.
And by the way, great kudos for the Pratchett reference there. He got it, you know, and somebody else that I was reading as a young man that made a huge impression. I think he's right. I think that look, not to get too deep and soulful about it. I myself have no faith, right? I'm not a religious person. I'm fascinated. I probably know more about religion than I know about anything, and could joyously talk about various different theologies for hours. What always surprises me is that people are more impressed by a story that purports to be real than by a story that makes no such claims. Now, I would say, if you read a fiction and you know it's a fiction, and yet it moves you to tears and it changes the way you think and it makes you live your life in a different way, that is more powerful. And if I then turn around to you and say, by the way, that's a real story, so fucking what? Doesn't matter if it's real. It's worked its magic on you. It's done something deep and invisible inside your mind. It's changed the way you think without any claims to being historical. You don't have to have faith in it because it's changed the way you think. And that, I think, is what is hardwired into us as human beings. This is what I mean when I say we think in terms of stories. We can't not. We immediately remove anything from our memories which does not operate in terms of some sort of meaningful value nugget. And if you're smart or mendacious, you can utilize that for better or worse. You can change the way people think. And I think a lot of the worst people in history got that lesson very quickly, realized that you can tell a story that is going to, in some very lazy way, make people more selfish, less thoughtful, more prone to being tribal and self-absorbed, unempathetic. And we who believe the opposite, I speak for myself, I'm assuming that you're all wonderful people, you all seem to be wonderful people, we're not doing enough to use stories to show people that there's a better way of being. We're not using stories to show people that we can all be more empathetic and it's okay to take care of somebody when they're down and broken. The world is becoming, right before our eyes, a very selfish, very insular, very me-first place, because there are no stories that present the opposite. And this, listen, this is getting way too heady, and I apologize, but
you're doing great. Keep it up.
No, we love this.
I'm waiting for the part about capitalism to come in. I'm like, I'm with you, man.
I mean, the day my little boy came home from nursery, and I've never showed him any of my comics. He was like 3 at this point. And he goes, Daddy, I'm a superhero. And he runs around the house punching stuff and breaking things. And I'm like, oh, shit. I appear to have built a career around the fact that moral righteousness is who can hit the hardest, who can break things the most. And that really, really staggered me. And I had to really think about it. And listen, there's an out We can talk about aspiration. We can talk about, and I put a lot of this in the Flash run I'm doing now. It's not about who can hit the hardest. It's about being visible. It's about being more decent than the monsters. It's about stepping up, showing people that anybody can set their face against the forces of selfishness and awfulness.
I also think, sorry to piggyback on that, I think, like you said, there's a lot that can be said there, because I know for a fact, I'm one of those people that someone's like, how you doing? I'm like, surviving, which admittedly is a Shaun of the Dead reference. Thank you, Justin.
You got right on you.
Yep, thank you. I know, I just realized, I was like, oh my God. But I think what I also realized was that at some point I'm tired of saying it, because I'm just like, I just want to say I'm doing good, versus like surviving, because then it just makes it feel like you're just going through the motions. Life is war. Nothing matters. Like, you really need to care about what you're doing, where you are, who you're with, because it's so easy to get caught in what I like to call the Groundhog Day loop. You just do the same thing over and over, slight deviations, but you're just going to wake up and just go back to the same thing. Like, it's so easy burning out that then when something new happens, it's I mean, we're talking about religion and theology, and I think, what was it that I always think of, how it's addressed in movies, and then Evan Almighty. I think Evan Almighty was the one that said, like, when you ask for something, does that not give you opportunities to get it? Like, if you ask for money, does it not give you opportunities to make money? It's never going to give you exactly what you want. It's going to put you in a position where you can get it, but it's never going to be like, there it is. So I think it's about, you have to see it for what it is versus not what you want. So it's all about, like you said, perception. It's about looking at it. And I mean, hell, James and the Giant Peach said it best, try looking at it another way. So,
Very Tony Robbins inspirational metaphysical there, Drew. I kind of I got to ponder that for a bit.
Yeah, hold on a second.
Jeez, I was just thinking about superheroes. Instead of them punching things, it used to be where superheroes would save people. They'd save people from burning buildings, or they'd save cats in trees and things like that. And it was like an inspirational thing where you see the thing and, oh, I'm not going to rob that bank because I saw the thing. Things like that. There's that other aspect that I think the Flash really embodies, because even his rogues gallery admittedly don't hate the guy. They don't hate him. It's one of those things. It's like, oh, you got me again, speedster.
I mean, this is why, listen, we talked about this before, like the whole sort of 1990s Vertigo pigeonhole thing. When the opportunity arose to pitch for the Flash, I was exceptionally busy. I had no time. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know much about this character. I'm going to pitch something that is specifically oriented towards showing how pluripotent this character can be. It's been all these years, and the character has been utilized in all sorts of interesting ways, but they all tend to be about broadly decent family man, runs very fast. And I was like, but there's a lot more you could do with this. And my brain went into horror. I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to make this a horror story? And I pitched it with no expectation that it would go anywhere. And then they went for it. And I suspect they went for it precisely because the movie had not done terribly well. They wanted to, I'm guessing, I don't know this, they wanted to demonstrate that a character who has been around for decades has new life in them, and you can do new, interesting things with them. And that's fascinating. That's really good thinking, I think, in this sort of big two paradigm where I was acquainted with this phrase, play the hits. Evidently, quite a lot of the big writers will come aboard a well-known IP, and their pitch is, I'm going to play the hits, which means same old stories, Batman fights Joker, Superman
I was
fights
just thinking that.
And I just sort of think
Superman and Brainiac,
that
that's what I went to.
books will sell like gangbusters. They will do extraordinarily well, and nobody will remember them. And that's fine. If that's what we want our comics to be, fine. But that's not what I can do. It's not what I really want to do. I want to do something that is going to challenge people and probably piss off a load of people, but it'll be remembered, and it'll be a little sign that when you really think about what it is to be somebody who is capable of extraordinary things, it's not just about punching a guy because you can. It's about 1,000 other things, and how you navigate this extraordinary, complicated world without it just being reduced to goodies and baddies. There's a reason I don't get asked to write the Avengers.
I mean,
Well,
hey, listen, I'm sold, man. Keep writing. Do the thing.
There's been a huge upsurge in, well, and okay, and you guys correct me. Actually, Justin, you'd probably be better at this than asking Drew because he's with me on the horror thing. But it
Excuse me.
seems to me that there is a lot more horror going on these days than there used to be. Because, and I'm going crazy about it. I was born on Halloween. I write horror. I'm totally into horror. Everything is horror. And poor Leo, when he is here, is just tortured anymore because we're like, oh, and we're reading this horror comic this week, and we're reading this one this week, and I'm just like, and check out, all the just like death that takes place in here and how brutal this is.
Yeah.
But it's that, and a lot of like, and in the American side of things, it would be kind of the Southern Gothic or American Gothic sort of feel, which is what you got going on, the American Gothic kind of feel going on in Dead in America. But it's making like this really strong comeback, and it's grabbing a lot of people, I think. And I don't know if it has something to do with like what all's going on in comic book culture as far as who the people that are writing and creating are right now, because I know that a lot of the movies that have been coming out that have been successful were initially directed or were directed by people who were initially horror directors, because they're very good at looking at the specifics and catching every single thing. And if that's spread out at all, or do you feel?
It's a really good.
I'm not
really
sure I'm
good
going here. That
No, I think it's yeah. I haven't given it any thought. I think the current popularity of horror, I'm sure plenty of people have written very scholarly papers about the correlation between what's going on in the world and the rise or fall of that particular genre. I guess deep down in some instinctive place, I think of, I don't know if this is true, but statistically, people who listen to heavy metal are less likely to be involved in assault and violent crime.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the way that and by the way, I see your Tool T-shirt. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big fan, and was horrified to discover my 12-year-old nephew describing Tool as dad rock. So we have been relegated to the category of dad rock.
At least he didn't call it progressive metal. I mean, it's like,
Yes,
all right,
okay.
yeah. Okay, you're disrespectful, but not pretentious. So
the idea, I think, is that horror fans are getting some sort of vent, some sort of release from the quotidian horrors of the world that allows them to navigate an increasingly horrific world without it hurting them too much. Is that right? Something like that. It feels like it's to do with there's enough genuine psychopaths in the world who are bubblegum chewing, straight-laced, suit-wearing Nazis without people joining them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. This is really half-assed and half-formed.
Manifesting our outward fears so we don't have to internalize how we actually feel about the real world, perhaps.
Yeah, something like that. The sort of the dissonance between the inside and the outside, definitely, but also just if we can learn to be entertained by a sort of crude visual form of horror, then maybe we're better able to navigate the complicated horror that surrounds us. I don't know. There's something in there, isn't there?
That's your area, Carrie. What do you think?
Well, that's why I brought it up. I'm so thrilled with it, and I had had a sociology professor, Dr. Jim Farger, who once he had all these laws. It was Farger's laws, and this was his law for science fiction. Was it's always happening now. Anything that you see that's done in sci-fi is a reflection on modern day. And I think that horror, it can kind of, it's not exactly the same equivalent. Like his his favorite example was Enemy Mine was about racism. You know, the book and everything with the aliens and stuff. But I think with the
I'm
horror,
glad that's changed since 1987.
Nice.
they're probably releasing a new one. I just learned about that the other day. But having uh having the horror out there and stuff, I think a lot of the new creatives, and it's a lot of newer people too are coming into it. But it gives us like you were saying, gives a way to like show how the world is and let people maybe have a bit of a fright on a different level, or to be able to sink in and relate with these dark things that are going on in their head and put them somewhere. They can relate, like, God, everything is so damn horrible right now, but oh, let's look over here. Yeah, okay, they get it. It's like listening to depressing music when you're depressed. At least somebody understands. So being put into the horrific situations in good comics, it's like, okay, it's not exactly the same situation, but they understand that feeling, because horror is one that can pull in that real hard gut feeling from you. So I think it's the emotional connection, even if it's not over the same
So like traumatic
issue.
resonance, traumatic displacement, something like that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. I don't.
We're
I
touching
need
on
to
some
think about that some
subjects
more.
here,
But I think it's. I mean, in terms of like story genre, I guess my approach has always been if the big two had spent the last 3 decades investing in horror comics with new characters, spy comics with new characters, romance comics with new characters, then we probably wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now, where the distributors going down the pipes, retailers are struggling because all the risk is heaped upon the retailers. The only financial model that makes sense to anybody in this current paradigm is to keep doing the same shit that's worked before. That's why you see the same events that you've seen before, you see the same stories, you get playing the hits, and it's because that's what works. There's no margin for error, there's no wiggle room. If a retailer makes 2 shitty decisions in a row, they're out of business. If the CEO of one of the big 2 companies does not provide the shareholders with the same profit, or better still, more profit than they made last year, they're out of a job. So what are they going to do? Are they going to take a risk? Are they going to start investing in interesting new ideas, European models, new formats, new stories, new characters? Or are they going to do the same thing that happened 10 years ago that sold really well? The answer is always that one. Let's do a big reboot. Let's start again with the same characters.
Yeah.
I'm not going back to the 90s, so I'm not going back to chromium covers and all that kind of speculator market.
But I think the thing that's really great sometimes is that, the 90s are one of my favorite eras, and these two will know that I'll sing praises about a lot of great 90s DC books and 1 or 2 good solid 90s Marvel. But I mean, they took chances, and sometimes it didn't always go great, but that's why they still remain popular. And I think, like you said, like when you were describing what happened with your book, I was like, listen, man, I mean, Firefly only got 1 season, but people are still raving about it now, and it's like 20 something damn years ago. So like you said, like it's true. It's always, when it comes to comics, if the book isn't selling, it's not going to last. But a lot of times, the fans will surprise, and I think it's always really great. When you talk about it, something like what we do, we would just talk about comics, and it's kind of like when you find a favorite movie. There's one that's for everybody, and everybody enjoys, and it doesn't matter what they love or whatnot, even if some people are cinematically challenged.
We're talking
You
about
know,
Christmas Carol again, right?
no, no,
what
well,
we're talking about?
maybe.
He's making fun of my absolute loathing of like 4 quite popular actors.
No, I wasn't making fun of that. I was
And the
making fun of
fact that I
anytime.
will watch anything that has Brad Dourif in it like 400 times.
That's the right
No,
answer.
You know,
no.
interjection. I rewatched Alien Resurrection the other day, and those first 20 minutes are actually very good. Anyway, carry on.
Yes.
Moving
Oh,
on.
100%. That is a dumb, fun movie. And fun fact, Carrie, Brad Dourif is in that movie.
I
So,
know that pretty
damn.
Very
butterfly.
obvious.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, dear God.
You will always be my grima worm tongue.
There you go. Well, because we're coming up on the end of things. Sorry, and thank you again for being with us. So briefly, like when you're not, because I know our beloved Leo, when he's not a cat, would ask this, so I gotta keep true. When you're not writing comics and whatnot, what do you do in your spare time? Do you have any hobbies? Is there anything? Do you read? Do you hike? I don't know. Do you boat? You are by the water, so maybe you fish. I don't know.
I like that. Boat as a
Yeah.
verb is good. I like that. Does one boat? No. Does one not boat? One does not boat.
You could ship something, I
Um,
suppose, but
yeah, that's fine. It's got all sorts of
Right?
meanings.
Oh, that was your one. Good timing, Justin.
Nicely done.
What do? I parent mostly. I read a great deal. We talked about this a little bit earlier on. I came from prose before I was writing comics. So
Mhm.
this is a longer conversation than we have time for. This has felt like a pub chat. I would like to go to a pub with you guys and just talk all night. It's good. It's a good vibe.
We're good. We're ready.
The
Let's go.
thing when you're like doing this all day every day, the thing that you are doing that you're being paid for is inevitably the thing that you least want to be doing, right? When your hobby becomes your job, it's time to get a new hobby. Now, I'm lucky, I guess, in that I've worked in prose, I've worked in TV and movies, and I've worked in comics. So whenever I'm feeling a bit burnt out, and I am feeling very burnt out writing comics, all I want to do is go and write a novel or write a screenplay. So I guess you could say my hobby is whenever I get those spare minutes, I sit down and do something that is still technically writing, but is not writing comics. I read a great amount of nonfiction. I realized early on that if I read fiction, which I adore, my brain, which is my greatest enemy, starts to tell me that I should be working. Fiction feels like an indulgence, which it won't allow me to have. So I learned that if I read nonfiction, I can trick my brain into the idea that it's research, and I can put little post-it notes on every second page, and my brain goes, okay, you're working, so you can enjoy this. So that's what I do of an evening. My wife and I play lots of video games. But yeah, there's not much time in our lives because of the rat bags.
what's your favorite episode of Bluey? I'm just kidding.
Rat Pack, the one where they build the. How familiar are you with Bluey? I mean, this is a big conversation.
I'm pretty familiar with it.
You're pretty familiar.
Yeah, the one where they build the swing chair on the lawn while Bluey and Bingo are having a kind of evolution through the stages of man experience in the garden. It ends with this stunning beat where Bluey leaves Bingo to sail across the ocean of the lawn, and she goes and sits with her parents in this completed swing chair. And you realize, if you're watching, the children don't realize, that this is a metaphor for death. And they sit there on this swing chair, and Dad says, "This is heaven." And
Yes.
Every parent in the room is going, "Oh!" And the kids are going, "Daddy, why are you sad? I don't get it. What's going on?" That's Bluey.
There you go.
Guys, I'm not kidding. I watch this show. Like, me and my wife watch this show. It's good.
He does. They do. They're absurdly cute like that.
It's great telly.
Absolutely. Well, but okay. So we're coming up on time. So, Sai, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. This was absolutely fantastic. If there's anything that you're doing project wise, Kickstarters or anything, please let us know. We'd be more than glad to support and post about it. And if there's anything comes up, we'd be more than glad to have you back on, on a weekend or even whatnot. But before we go,
I do.
Yeah, Carrie.
I do have to show this because this is one of the best introductions to a character I have seen. Kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. Howdy.
Oh, nice.
True. You got to give that gorilla his props.
I thought
It's
that was
just-
Coda at first when I saw the artwork. I was like, what?
Yeah. I just love the how. If we didn't show the rest of the comic, I just wanted to at least show the howdy.
True. Well, we can always come back to it. It's a gorilla with guns, Carrie. We can always come back to it. It's not going.
Art Adams sort of concept. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It feels like it should be right next to Monkey Man and O'Brien. But before we go, are you going to any conventions? And what's the best way that anybody can reach you, social media wise?
I think I'll be at New York in October. It's actually my wife's 40th birthday, so we're going to go spend a week in New York. Pay lip service to the show. We'll be there a little bit, but mostly just having fun with our friends in the States. Thought Bubble is something that every comic fan should go to once in their life, which is in the north of England. I think that's in November. That's probably it for me. It's been a hectic few years, so staying away as much as possible. I tend to be on Blue Sky these days at Spurrier. www.simonspurrier.co.uk or .com probably works as well. Yeah, it's a sort of transitional phase ever since Twitter became a poisonous mire. I think there's new sort of newslettery, social media-y, video-y type stuff coming down the pipe soon, which I've got planned, but not ready to talk about that yet. So it's a big couple of years for me. Lots of creator-owned work, which I can't talk about yet, but yeah, it's going to be heavy.
Oh, we're ready to cover it. Well, again, thank you so much, man. We really do appreciate it. And I'm going to stop talking, Carrie and Justin, if you have anything to say.
Oh, I was just gonna let people know I purchased I did the little read the sample part and it was awesome. But a copy of his book A Serpent Uncoiled, part of his prose work. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I'm very excited. If you're into doing like more interviews, I could have you on one of my other shows that I do where I just talk about storytelling in general and
always up for nattering about storytelling. I might need another glass of wine though, but yeah, no, that sounds great.
Carrie, I'll send you the info.
All right, rock on. Yeah. But yeah, cool. Any final Dark Crystal moments?
Oh, geez, there's so many. I was thinking about it when he was talking about like getting into the weeds and all that, about like all the different parts of Thra and all that, and I'm like, I've got the Book of Gelflings like within arm's reach, so I'm like, yeah, I'm that guy. But it's okay. I just say, when we talk to somebody, it's important that the listeners understand what they wrote and we give our recommendations and stuff like that. I could not recommend that Dark Crystal story. It was amazing. It's and then the Labyrinth, which is the prequel and the origin story of Jareth. If you like these sort of Henson things, check those out. So that's my main experience besides like all the X-Men stuff. X-Men Legacy was awesome. So that's kind of what brought me out of the depths today. So
yes. Okay.
All right.
Well guys, this has been so joyous. Like I said, this feels like a pub chat. I feel like I'm sitting in a smoke-wreathed East London pub sipping appalling wine. We should do that.
Oh, listen, I might be at New York in October. So if I am, I'm definitely going to be like, Spurrier, where are you at? Let's go. Especially there could be a chance I'm dressed as a Ghostbuster. So that would be pretty cool. So
we can all do terrible accents if that helps.
Yeah. Oh, Spy, where you at? And thanks. But seriously, thank you again. The best of everything that you're working on, and like Carrie said, just when you're leaving, just press the leave.
Well, we're just gonna end the stream. We can all do it together afterwards.
Oh, that's true. That's my bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, Carrie.
On our normal weekday shows, we let you go, and then we do a bunch of news and Kickstarter reviews and things like that. But on our Saturday shows, it's just you. So we get to say, Thank you, everybody, for watching.
That's
We
true.
very much appreciate it. And hope to see you soon, and hope to see Sai soon as well. So thanks
Thanks for
everybody.
having me, guys.
Have a good night.